stop freaking out about lead in protein powder. It's not going to kill you. Okay, I know this consumer report came out saying that I think it was like most protein powders, especially plant-based protein powders, tested over the threshold for lead contamination. And everybody started freaking out about this. I probably got 100 emails about this alone. The reality is, if you set a threshold for something low enough, everything will be contaminated. What do I mean by that? Well, they didn't use the FDA guideline, they didn't use the WHO guideline, they used Prop 65 from California. Now, a little lesson on Prop 65, it is not based in any kind of evidence whatsoever. I have golf club covers that say contains chemicals known to cause cancer in the state of California. I have weight plates that have a Prop 65 warning on them. Prop 65 is not evidence-based. Now, I want to point out there is no safe level of exposure to lead. You want to minimize it as much as possible, but lead is in soil. No matter where you get things from soil, there's invariably going to be some amount of lead in it. The threshold they set for this was 0.5 micrograms of lead per serving. This is way under what the FDA sets, which is 8.8 micrograms per day. You'd need to consume, I don't know, 15 to 20 servings of these protein powders per day in order to go over that threshold. And oh, by the way, there are fruits and vegetables that have essentially a similar amount of lead per like 500 grams. Okay, so if you're eating the amount of fruits and vegetables that you're supposed to consume for health based on mortality, cardiovascular disease, cancer, you're going to get some lead. That's probably going to be close to this threshold anyway. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you get organic or non-organic, they have similar amounts of lead regardless. It's more about where the soil is. Now, I am not saying that you should not try to avoid lead. If you can avoid it, you should try to avoid it. But the threshold they set for this was so low that, yeah, especially plant-based protein powders that come from the ground, they're going to have some level of lead in them. But it is in parts per billion. And it seems like no one actually reads the actual study or report and sees, oh, I wonder how much half a microgram of lead actually is and what the actual evidence says about what you need for lead poisoning. So again, if you can avoid lead, you should try to avoid it as much as possible. But I am not concerned about a half a microgram or a microgram of lead in a protein powder. I think the highest was in a plant-based protein powder that was like 7 micrograms, which is still under the threshold from what the FDA suggests. Now again, if you're having multiple servings a day, you're going to go over that, so maybe you want to avoid that particular protein powder. But again, especially if you're dealing with like whey protein and whatnot, it's going to be very little contamination in there. Plant-based, okay, maybe you want to check this list and find something that's a little bit lower in lead. But again, if you set a threshold for contamination low enough, everything will fail, or most things will fail. I personally am just not that worried about this.